back wall, you know.
Yeah.
Thing, so he shouldn't be.
He also does great magic tricks. You know, he's done that, like he spoke to the West High football team once or twice, and then, you know, did a couple of like coin magic tricks at the end, and the guys loved it. They did. So if anybody knows a good email address or maybe a phone number for Ernie Found so that we can get him to do a program, put it in the chat. I think he's a member of St. Andrews, possibly. I'm not sure. So
I should be able to get his phone number. We have mutual friends.
great.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Wonderful. Well, it is 12:02, so we will get started today. My name is Barb Thomas, and I am your president for the 2020-21 Rotary year. So welcome. Nice sunny day today. Glad that you're all here. Just a reminder to make sure that you go into the chat and that you write your name in there for your attendance. And before we start, we will do what we do every time, which is start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if Devin will share the slide, I encourage you to join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God.
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
This is for all.
Great, thank you all. Again, welcome to our meeting. I'm going to actually turn it over to Devin for just a few quick Zoom reminders. Devin?
Thanks, President Barb. Zoom reminders, y'all are probably all had at this, but check out your gallery view versus your speaker view.
Yeah,
Go to the speaker view
I'll be back.
when somebody's talking for an extended length of time. If you want to see other people's reactions, check out that gallery view. If Sean, our presenter, says something particularly spicy today, go to that gallery view and see what everybody else is looking like. Not that he's going to do that. Also, you have reactions. There's a reactions tab. There's things like a party emoji, a little heart emoji. So if you're feeling stuff that other people are saying, use that. You can also raise your hand during the presentation for questions afterwards, or if you have a guest or a visitor. And finally, I will do one more plug for going into the chat to sign in for attendance. But if you just want to talk to people, you can do that. And one tip that we were just reminded of, this one might be new to some of you. If you open the chat up, you'll see a little everyone note, like a little text box that says everyone. You can open that up and pick different people so that you can do a private chat. So if that's news to you, go find somebody and do a private chat during the meeting. Enjoy yourselves. Side whispers in the meeting, that sort of thing. Back to you, President Barb.
Great, thank you so much, Devin. So just a reminder to everybody that, you know, as Zoom updates, one thing that you might want to keep in mind is that whether you have the most recent update of Zoom. And so that is something that you may want to kind of check on. You know, you can do that through some of maybe your system settings, or you can always try to pick the brain of some of our tech resource people. I know like Bill Easton usually has a quick answer if you need some help with that. But if you do have the most recent version of Zoom, in addition to the additional reactions that are in there, you'll actually see 3 dots. And now the fun part of the 3 dots is that you get even more emojis. So, you know, I can, you know, put up a little angel emoji, but you can scroll through it. You can get everything from animals to, you know, so I'm going to tell you about it, but I don't want you to go too crazy with it, but just a little more added fun that Zoom has provided for you. So next, I want to check and see if anybody has any announcements. If you have, I encourage you to raise your hand. The one thing I want to announce to the club is that it is actually time to renew your dues. Now, this might seem a little bit earlier than normal, and guess what? It is. And the reason for that is that, unfortunately, sometimes the dues renewal process drags on a little bit too long. And remember, you have a volunteer board of directors who are trying to follow up on that. So we want you to do what is fair to all concerned. And we want you to make sure that when you get that dues announcement, we want you to fill it out and send it in right away. So today, this afternoon, I will be emailing you and with a dues announcement. But guess what? We're going to mail it to you too, because we know that different people, some people don't get the emails. It might be harder for you to download that file. So we want to just make sure that you get it. So we're going to mail it to you and we're going to email it to you. You do not have to pay it twice. Hello. Only pay it once, but pay it promptly. Please, please, please do that for us. So please watch your mail, watch your email, pay however you like. Remember, you do have the option for ACH payments, so you can pay quarterly. If you choose to do that, that does mean that you have to provide the $100 every Rotarian every year donation. So just a reminder that when you pay these dues, a portion of those dues go to Rotary International. A portion of those dues go to the district. And the rest of them are the funds that we use to do good work in our community. And that's by providing funds and resources to different committees within our organization, as well as just to basically handle, our general operations. So as of July 1st, our club has to pay international dues for every member who's on the books. And that's part of the reason why we want to move up this deadline, so that we get your resources in earlier. But then we also know that if there are people who have to drop out of our club, that we're aware of it and we're not paying international dues for you on July 1st. Okay, so does that make sense to everybody? I want to make sure and just encourage you one more time, pay those dues promptly, because it is really fair and it will benefit all concerned. So thanks so much with that. And I'm just taking a quick look. It does not look like we have any other announcements. Going once, going twice. I'm just going to kind of look through the list. I'm going to go to Jim Conard, who's going to provide for us his Rotary moment of gratitude and positivity. Jim?
Well, thank you, Barb. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this group again. Hope everyone's doing well. And I thought that I would use my minute of Rotary positivity and gratitude to speak about 5 quick things that I'm either positive about or grateful for. And these are in no certain order. But one of them is Eric Weiler. I think we're all excited that Eric's going to be our next president. I would tell you that from my perspective and working with Eric for a number of years, just as a Rotarian and as a board member, Eric has that great combination that we are all excited about, where he's a very engaged Rotarian. Eric participates in many levels on the board. He, of course, has been a part of our grant process and just has been a great Rotarian. And he's also very engaged and enthusiastic about Rotary. And in this time where it's difficult to meet, and we're looking for someone to continue on with these meetings in a positive way, Eric's going to be a great leader for us. The second thing that I'm really positive about is the future of in-person meetings. It's gonna happen. I commend this group for continuing to be able to meet this way. But boy, it's not the same as meeting together in person. And I just love the thought and probability that we'll be together soon. Can't wait for those days. Can't look forward to it coming fast enough, but very positive about that. Number 3, something that I'm very grateful about is this moment of positivity and gratitude still being on our agenda. I think it's a fun part of the meeting for me to see continue. I think given this past year or so, I don't know about everyone else, but I feel like I need to be and have been more intentional about thinking about things that I'm more grateful for or positive about. And this 1 minute every Thursday reminds me of that, and it reminds me of it at a fun venue, Rotary. And I think it's nice that it's continued. So thanks, Barb, for continuing this. Number 4, I'm positive about and grateful for all of you, because meeting attendance is still great. I just mentioned how much better Rotary is when we can sit side by side and see each other and enjoy each other's fellowship. But I'm just delighted to see the number of people that continue to participate in these meetings to keep our Rotary Club moving forward and strong. And number 5, I am very positive about and very grateful for Barb Thomas. What a wonderful leader Barb is. I would like to say that from my perspective as president last year, Barb could not have been more helpful and more engaged in my year as Rotary president, and did so many things to help our club behind the scenes. And now here she is in the forefront, continuing to do that and to be our leader. I had a boss one time that said, enthusiasm is a lost art. And what the boss meant was, when you do things, for example, 50 times, Barb's going to lead 50 Rotary meetings on a Zoom call. I don't know about everyone, but Zoom calls are hard to be enthusiastic about and engaging in. And Barb can even have fun talking about dues. Wasn't that, I appreciate your enthusiasm even talking about dues, Barb. But Barb's been a wonderful leader, kept these meetings going. We've got our live in-person meetings in sight, and very positive and excited about that. Barb, thanks for the opportunity to speak to the group. It's nice to see everyone virtually, and have a wonderful day.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. Thanks for your kind words, but actually thank you for starting this tradition. So for those of you who maybe didn't really realize it, but when we went to Zoom, Jim is the guy who came up with this idea about, at the time of COVID, like in March and April, when things were really hitting and we were all realizing what this was going to mean for us. Jim was the one that was like, we need to just be reminded what to be grateful for, what to be positive about. Let's start this new thing. And it's actually been great. I've truly enjoyed hearing everybody's thoughts, and we've kind of heard a wide perspective of them. And if you're interested in doing it, reach out to me and let me know. I can put you on the calendar. But it's been a great reflection, I think. And it's thanks to you, Jim, that it was created. And I'll have you know that the AM Club is also doing something similar based on this idea. So kudos to you, Jim, for starting a great tradition.
Great. Thank you, Barb.
You bet. So before we move on, now Jim mentioned something kind of exciting, and that is the return to in-person meetings. And that is right. We are working at it. We're getting there. It's going to be an interesting challenge for us, partially because we know that now that people have the option to participate virtually, that people kind of like to have that. It might be perfect for if you are having some health issues and you can't get out of the house, but you still would like to attend a Rotary meeting. It might be helpful if your work is just too busy and you can't, you wanted to leave in time to get there in time, but you're just not able to, but you're able to kind of squeeze away that time and join virtually. So our hope is that we are going to be able to continue to do meetings in a hybrid fashion. And that means that we'll be doing in-person meetings, but that we will try to still provide it through Zoom. Now, there are some challenges with that. And so we have a small committee that's working together to work towards kind of solving that technology issue. If you perhaps are familiar with technology and would like to participate in that, I think you should send me an email, or perhaps, send me a direct message in the chat, because Devin has told you how to send a direct message. And so, reach out and let us know, because we welcome that assistance. The other thing is that you have to remember that with that, there will be a need for additional people to kind of help us run those meetings. And so we will need additional volunteers to help with running those Zoom aspects of the meeting there, being on the computer, helping with the technology, in addition to the regular duties that we've always needed, where we've needed people to help us with the flags and the computers and the, just those different things. So many hands make for light work. So I want you to think about whether you have an interest, an expertise, or something that would help us with those in-person meetings. And I encourage you to reach out to us, because we would love your assistance. So we do think that we'll be able to do that soon. We actually are working on a survey that you will receive soon about in-person meetings, trying to gauge some of your interest. But the one thing, I've done this before, I'm going to do it again, is I want to launch a quick poll just to see where we're at with our members. And this really has to do with the vaccine and whether you have been vaccinated or not, or if you're in process. So if you can, please go to your computer and press your entry. We'll just wait a few minutes and we'll kind of see where we're at. Again, we're getting closer and closer. Our hope is that by this summer, we might be able to actually start in-person meetings again. I don't know whether I will ever be an in-person president, but one way or the other, it should be fine. Okay, so I am going to give you about 10 seconds. And okay, it seems like we've kind of stopped. I'm going to end the polling and I'm going to share the results. So we are now at 84% of those attending have had both shots and are done, which is great. We have 9% who have had one and are awaiting the second. So those are all positive signs that help us kind of understand that we are moving closer to the point where we can have in-person meetings, which I think we all agree will be a great opportunity for us to see each other in person. So next, I want to go to Ryan Bell. Ryan's got a great piece that he would like to share with us. Ryan?
Hey, fellow Rotarians. Yeah, I am a member of the Rotary Kerber Community Heart Safe campaign. I had to really think that through to make sure I nailed the title. But we've been working, as you guys know, with Jim Merchant and Diane Atkins and Linda Kerber and Chris Atchison. I'll miss a few if I try to name everybody, but we've been working hard to both provide CPR training and discounted AEDs to the business community, to the nonprofit community, and to the faith community. And in our efforts, we've enlisted the expertise on William Easton, who is a member of our club here. He runs a marketing firm called Easton Design and has an excellent employee named Caleb, who put together a kind of a fun and lighthearted approach to heart safety, which is tough to do. But I think Barb or Devin are going to roll that very short 1-minute video, and we would love you all to be entertained by it, but then also share it from our YouTube page to folks that you think might need to see it. So take it away, guys.
Hello, I'm Dr. Diane Atkins. Each year, 350,000 Americans will suffer a sudden cardiac arrest. Fewer than 10% will survive. But research has shown us that up to 60% can survive with timely CPR and use of an automated external defibrillator, or AED. But with each passing minute without CPR, a victim's chances of survival decline by 10%. That's why it is so important that if you witness this, you should first call 911, immediately start hands-only CPR, and locate the nearest AED.
Thank you, Diane. That's exactly why having an accessible AED is so crucial.
We are the Rotary Kerber Heart Safe campaign, and we are here to pump you up about heart safety.
We are helping equip the business and nonprofit community have access to low-cost AEDs and free CPR training.
Do you know a business owner or nonprofit director that we should be in touch with? Please go to the Contact Us section of iowaheartsafe.org and help make Johnson County heart safe.
Excellent. Great. Thanks so much, Ryan. So if some of our Rotarians are interested in joining you and working on that campaign, can they contact you, Jim Merchant?
I would love to be in contact with anybody. And yeah, our goal is to also work with Pulse Point, which is a nationwide kind of app and website that will end up tracking and locating all of the community CP or AEDs. So all of Johnson counties will be listed on there, which is really cool.
Excellent. So great effort. Hey, Bill Easton, great job on that video. Really love it. You know, wonderful video and a wonderful committee and a wonderful effort that they are doing. They've already had a great impact. And as we come out of the time of COVID, there will be more opportunities for people to volunteer and help with that AED training as well. Looks like Bill has his hand raised.
Yeah, so just real quick, I do want to point out Caleb Davis, who's the director of video production. This is all his work, and obviously the committee and Ryan did everything. So I appreciate the credit, but I really don't deserve any. It's a great program, and we're just happy to be working with it.
Well, thanks so much, Bill, but you did make that introduction. So without you, it still probably wouldn't exactly have happened. So, but thanks for making that introduction, and give our thanks to Caleb for his good work.
So I do want to say Caleb is on. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to raise my hand and mention that he's a guest today, but he is on the call. So, so thanks again, Caleb.
Hey, Caleb, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, good work, Caleb. We really appreciate it. And, you know, Bill did remind me, as Eric just did, and through that helpful direct message, that like I completely spaced out the whole introduction of guests. Like, duh. So we've met Caleb, but by chance, do we have other guests that are here? It looks like Ryan might have another guest to introduce.
I do. I am joined again by Samantha Johnson, who works here locally at Mergen Orthodontics. And she is a young environmentalist. She's very interested in today's program and also very interested in getting plugged into the community with different nonprofit endeavors. So I figured what better way than with Rotary. So everybody be really nice to her. And we'd like for her to come back again here real soon. Samantha, you want to say hi?
Okay, Samantha, are you possibly muted?
She was on, maybe she dropped off, but
Right.
anyway.
She's here, I think. It looks like she is here. So, well, Samantha, even if you're not going to say hi, we all want to say welcome. We want you to come back. We want you to participate because this is a great group for you to get connected to. So we want you to participate, and it's a great way to get connected to a lot of different people in our community. So welcome, and you are welcome back anytime. Same goes for you, Caleb. We'd love to have you anytime you want to come back. So next, we're going to go to Joe Hughes, who has a guest as well. Joe?
Thank you, President Barb. I actually get to, well, first, before I introduce my guests, I'll say, Jim Conard, I thought your top 5 things on the list were going to all be mountain biking, but that's all right. That's all right.
Joe, I didn't think everyone else would be as interested in mountain biking as just you, so that's why.
I actually get to introduce my dad today, Craig Mosier. We have different last names because he married my mom when I was 2 years old. And he actually grew up in Iowa City, graduated from University High, if some of you remember that high school here in Iowa City on campus. He taught social work at the University of Iowa, UNI, and Luther College. He administered different agencies in Eastern Iowa. I specifically remember Hillcrest Family Services. He was a 7-year member of the downtown Cedar Rapids Rotary. And now, so he's especially interested in this program. He's a founding board member of the Johnson Clean Energy District here. And he launched a similar thing up in Decorah with the Winneshiek District. And then he's also very involved in his Iowa City co-housing community, which is the new development off Benton Street and Miller. So welcome to my dad, Craig Mosier.
Craig, you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm really delighted to be here and meet some of Joe's friends and just mention that the Johnson Clean Energy District is involved in a major study of large-scale solar development in Iowa City with the city of Iowa City. And we're pulling together Mid-American and university and city staff and energy district people to develop a plan for this summer to talk about trying to do large-scale solar. And I'm delighted to see Sean's project as an example of the kind of thing we're talking about. So,
Excellent.
thanks.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you here. And then and we have to say, we really love having Joe as a member of our club. We're just going to tell you that too. So you should be proud.
I suspected.
And next to Devin, I believe Devin has someone.
Yeah, got two. They're really guests of our presenter. He asked if some members of his team could join us today. And so we've got Cordell Braverman and Karen Sherman with us. You guys want to say hi? Cordell, why don't you go first?
Hello, Rotary. Pleasure to be here.
And
Hi,
Karen,
I'm Karen Sherman. I work with Megawatt on this project. Thanks for including us today.
yeah, thanks for coming. Glad to have you.
Great, welcome. Happy to have you. And I apologize that normally we do introductions earlier in the meeting, but perhaps it's getting late in my presidency and I'm getting a little forgetful. But we welcome you and we're glad to have you here. So with that, if there is no other announcements, no other introductions, I'm going to turn it over to Devin, who will introduce our program today. Devin?
Yeah, thanks, President Barb. So occasionally we get recommendations of programs, asks of people who are trying to reach out to the local community about cool projects, cool things that are coming up. And this is one of those. Not all of them make the cut, but this one definitely did. So Sean Kennedy is from here in Iowa. He went to the University of Iowa, got his bachelor and master's of science in geology, believe it or not, and went on to do some cool stuff with that geology degree. Worked with the White House for a while, and worked with the Department of Energy in various capacities, worked with the White House Climate Change Task Force, and he can lay out much more of that much better than I can. But then went overseas and advised a number of people in a number of different Baltic countries about these sorts of projects, solar, renewable energy projects, and now is back in the States, specifically working on projects, photovoltaic and solar, I assume. They're equitable terms, it's the same thing, but projects just like the one you're about to hear about here in Johnson County in Iowa City. So Sean, we're really glad to have you. We're excited to hear about this project. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Devin, and thank you, Barb. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm an Iowa City native, and someone mentioned U High earlier. It actually was University K through 12, and Cordell and I go back to being classmates there and preschool before then, and Karen and I have known each other a good chunk of our lives, for all our lives. And so it's nice to be working on a hometown project. Very excited to be here. I'm going to go to screen sharing, if that's all right with y'all, and talk a little bit about the subject at hand. Tell me. So you've already met us all. We're all local natives. Our company's Megawatt Photovoltaic Developments. So photovoltaic really is solar panels. They're photovoltaic panels versus there's other kinds of solar, concentrating solar and hot water solar and all. But they take the energy from the sun and turn it into electrons, which gets put on the grid. And that's what we develop. So I've got a long history in energy and natural resources going back to school. And one little side note, by the way, I think my father was a member of your Rotary Club. He was Jack Kennedy, who was the director of the Iowa Institute of Hydraulic Research down by the Burlington Street Dam. But in any event, over the last 5 years since I formed Megawatt, we've worked on projects from Michigan to Los Angeles. We're a small national company, really a first stage developer of conceiving projects and getting them permitted and ready to the point of construction. During those years, we've looked at a lot of opportunities in Iowa City, working with the public schools, with the university, with the city on the water treatment plant and the sewage treatment plant, with ACT. And if you see all the the red on this slide, these are areas where we looked at, and Iowa has been a very difficult solar market. Energy prices are low. We benefit from cheap wind energy. We also don't have a huge demand structure here. The other problem is for a solar energy developer, we really don't have good state incentives. Many states we work in and we've worked in the past have additional incentives beyond the federal investment tax credit that make it favorable. So things that make solar work is a great solar resource, being in the desert of California, for instance, having really good state incentives, and finally having high power prices, and I should say having utilities that want to work with you. In the end, you have to, under Iowa regulations and under federal law, only certain groups can buy and sell power. And in Iowa, that's the monopoly utilities, Mid-American and Alliant. It's the rural electric cooperatives, and it's the municipal utilities, which we don't have in the Johnson County area. But when we looked at this and looked at what the impediments were to building these small projects, really became clear if we wanted to serve Iowa City, we needed to have one project that would serve the whole community. The bigger the project, the more the price comes down. Now, Iowa City is served in South Coralville, south of the interstate here, is served by a single transmission loop that circles the city, goes through all these substations where it's broken down to lower voltage, and it's distributed through the lines you see your backyard. That connects with multiple large 345,000 volt lines that run east to west and shoot north from here. So we started looking for a place to build on this service loop that could serve the whole community. And we came up with the notion of the Johnson County Solar Triangle. Why a triangle? When we looked at the loop, there's two places where there's enough land to build a project, east and west of the river. This area is very wet. Most places the loop passed through on the east side. If you look at the flood zone map and the wetlands map, it's too wet, and there may be a smaller play we can put together in future years over there to augment what we're doing here. If you look on the west side, you've got the Iowa River floodplain. If you look at the slide to my left where I'm moving my cursor, and then you've got the floodplain of Old Man's Creek. And then here on North Osage Street is really the southernmost residential development in this area. So that creates what we call Johnson County Solar Triangle. And it's 161,000 volts. Probably the power coming in your local lines, distribution lines, is 12 or 13,000 volts. This line can handle, and this, I'll give you more explanation of what a megawatt means as far as a development project, but this line can handle up to 225 megawatts of load. That's just like the wires in your house. You can't put too much power on them or you blow your circuits. If you didn't have your circuit breakers, you'd melt the wires, right? So you've got a thermal limit of how much power you can carry on a line. But this feeds all the areas we talked about before. Iowa City, Southern Coralville, the county residents, as outside of the city limits, as well as the community school district and the university, ACT, and a whole bunch of industrials in the corridor over here. So we took this concept and met with Mid-American Energy 2 years ago, this coming July, laid out without telling them the exact location, the vision, and they liked it and told us to go put a project together. And what does that mean? That really means optioning and leasing land of landowners that are interested in participating in the project. And in rural areas, that generally is farmers or the descendants of farmers that now are renting out their family farms. And these are all the different landowners we talked to over the last year and a half or so. In the end, so the triangle is about 4,000 acres. We don't need all 4,000. We need about 1,000 to 1,500 acres to make this work. We said we'd keep our cards close to our chest until we got, make sure I don't run out of time or keep an eye on it, till we got to 1,000 acres. Then we'd go back to Mid-American and make sure they were interested. And then we'd start talking to groups in the community, interested parties, as well as the university and ACT and all the folks we'd presented concepts to before. And we went back when we had 1,000 acres signed, and sure enough, Mid-American, as we'd hoped, was interested in the project. The price of solar has dropped dramatically over the last decades. If any of you are familiar with Moore's law that postulated, I believe in the 1960s, how computer processing would increase in capacity and drop in price. Moore speculated it would double in capacity and drop in price by 50% every 18 months. And that's why now in your mobile phone, you've got all the computing processing and more than they had in the Apollo space program. So solar panels are silicon chips. You can't get a lot more capacity out of them quickly, but the price does drop, similar to Moore's law. And so despite the last president's tariff on solar, which is still in place, and other factors that have created ripples in the market, we're at a place where we can build a project that's pretty favorable here. We have advanced discussions on another 500 acres, and our goal for the project is to get to about 1,500 acres. We made offers to over 20 landowners and have contracts with over 10 at this stage. Now, about the project size, and this, I'm going to try and keep it very, very simple here, but we're really looking at a project goal of 150 megawatts AC. You may have read, we had an article in the Press Citizen a week or so ago about this. If you haven't read it, you may want to go look at it. Just backing up to the landowner's point of view, it interviews Jim Dane, who's one of our landowner partners, and he sort of gives you the sense from a farm family why this is a good project. So at 150 megawatts, we will produce about 1/3 of a billion kilowatt hours. So you think when you look at your electric bill, you're really getting billed based on your kilowatt hours used. Once again, these are very hard numbers to wrap your head around because we don't really think about our electric bills very much. But what do these mean? So if you take one of the wind turbines you drive by on the way between Des Moines and Iowa City, those are usually 2 megawatts a pop. So this is the equivalent of building 75 wind turbines in a field. And when you look at what a Mid-American Energy and Alliant Energy and the Central Iowa Power Cooperative do, they don't go build one wind turbine at a time. They bite off 50 or 100 at a time. So part of the scaling of the project is to get it to the size the utilities are used to dealing with. If you're going to go build one wind turbine, the utility's probably not going to want to be involved because, as I always say, it takes just as many steps to shoot a squirrel as it takes to shoot an elephant. If you build a couple of acres of solar, you still require all the same number of permits and everything else. So you might as well go big and make sure it's something that will make an impact on the utility. After I've said that the utilities aren't very interested in a smaller solar, or indicated that, Mid-American had said it would build a 3 megawatt solar plant by the water treatment plant north of Iowa City, just north of I-80. There were some environmental concerns, and there's some nice prairie habitat there. They weren't, that this community wanted to protect, and they moved that project down to hills right at the bottom of the solar triangle, and they're building that now. But anyway, we will provide, how much power does 1/3 of a billion kilowatt hours, what does that do, right? Well, that's roughly the amount that's being bought by Mid-American Energy by the university. The university has a couple small power plants. I think they're 20 or 25 megawatt class plants. One of them's the one by the river across from where my dad's office was on the Burlington Street Dam. I believe the other one's up by Kinnick Stadium. And so we could get to, if this is sized right, we could take care of the public schools, which frankly, compared to the university, don't use very much. The needs of the city buildings for Iowa City and Coralville and the county building, ACT, and still have probably some left. And these are examples. We don't know quite what we're going to produce, but this is the scale to take care of some thousands of residences. Or we could just power 30,000 homes. And in the last sentences, I believe just in Iowa City, there were about 29,000 households, but I think some of those are just looking at one-bedroom apartments, et cetera. So who could potentially take this power? We think the most likely off-takers are Mid-American Energy, who we talked to. We're in discussions with them, and we're also in discussions with the Central Iowa Power Cooperative. And I just want to give you a quick example of what Central Iowa Power Cooperative did down in Wapello. They just, you probably saw in the news, they just completed, and this is while it's still under construction, basically, I think it's about a 700-acre project down here. But if you get a chance to drive over to Wapello, you can see the solar panels here. These are what are called trackers, which is what we'll mostly use. They follow the sun east to west all day long and reset at night. Here the panels are in, here they've got the racking, and the panels are here in pallets ready to go in. And this is this class of project. So now Iowa is at the point where we can have similar sized projects, and they'll be happening all over. Alliant Energy just announced a very interesting project at the Duane Arnold nuclear plant. I believe it's for 600 or 700 megawatts, so maybe 4 times as big as what we're proposing here. So the time for utility scale solar has arrived in Iowa, and unlike other states, we skip the stage where 2 megawatt and 5 megawatt projects are being built. There have been a few and some really great projects and really wonderful imaginative ways to get things done in a difficult environment, and I applaud them all. But I think the future in Iowa is going to be going from big wind to big solar. Then local benefits, everybody's always interested in what are the benefits to the community. Well, the price tag of this project when it's constructed is going to be roughly $180 million. So just putting an asset like that in the county is going to be good for the tax base of the county to begin with. Then there's additional local benefits, which would be resiliency. Why not just bring our power in from the windmills up around Sioux City? It was around, well, hopefully working with the utility, having locally produced power will give us more resiliency. And if they decide to include storage, battery storage, or other forms of storage, that will help. Of course, a lot of people feel there's a local responsibility to reduce our carbon footprint. If you ask anybody, they'd say Johnson County is the greenest county in the entire state. And I think that's true. There's communities that have done some pretty green things, but I think if you looked overall, we're the leader, but we should also lead by producing our own renewable energy and reducing our carbon footprint. There will be jobs, construction jobs, a lot of them, at least 250 during the main construction phase, but also long-term jobs in operations and maintenance and management of the project. It's a pretty big project. Then just the impugning value of being a county that cares about this will help keep talent here and bring talent in, bring industries in. Now, Iowa City is a place that's a pretty attractive community, but we believe that as far as bringing more jobs in and more people in, this certainly will help. And then we will, all of our contracts with our landowner partners state that we will plant a prairie pollinator seed mix. And this picture here is sort of an example of what that would look like. We are talking to a couple companies about putting the seed together for that. But you're taking, 1,500 acres that was cultivated and really land banking it for the future. We can't afford to create a true prairie. That takes dozens of years, and recreating prairies is a difficult process. But certainly we will create a lot of wonderful habitat for wildlife and for pollinator insects, and I think it'll be a great addition to the community. Then I worked for a long time, Megawatt did, in Detroit, where they got 40 square miles of vacant lots and vacant buildings. You've probably seen some of the photos of dilapidated buildings, and they tear down thousands of abandoned houses a year. It's a fairly difficult political environment to work in, but I'm trying to build a microgrid up there, and that's another whole conversation. And the things, but we always included a concept we called solar you can touch in it, which was finding a soft margin between the community and the project, because these were really urban projects. But we're interested, and of course it will take a lot of other parties cooperating to see how many benefits we can bring to the community, as well as have at the facility, essentially, whether there's a way to bring a park in on the edge, or have a place for beekeepers, or a trail that leads through the center, education materials, et cetera. And then if there's some way we can create a benefit that allows us to provide, we're exploring these things. They're more difficult to do because utilities have a pretty limited mandate, but if we can work on trying to find some benefits for low income people, or for bringing in an EV charging network to the county. These are, as I say, it's another presentation, but we're certainly thinking about these things. Now, what drives our timeline? Our timeline is driven by the grid operator. The grid operator here is known as the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. Everybody refers to it as MISO. So from Michigan down to Arkansas, you are in MISO's territory. You probably all heard about the problems they had in Texas because their grid operator, ERCOT, was just one state and hadn't done the proper things to create resiliency. The grid operator is the one that decides what projects can be connected to the grid, and they are the ones that decide who gets to put power in the grid at different times. So if the wind stops blowing, they may direct a old coal-fired plant to kick on, or a gas plant. These are often called peaker plants that just are dispatched in a second, maybe only run for 5 minutes so the cloud goes over a solar thing. But a very, very important part of what we do is MISO and getting their permission. Well, they have annual study cycles, and their next study cycle begins on July 22nd. So we're working very hard to get to the point where we get in their study queue by putting in our application, which is not just a form, it's a lot of engineered documents, and it costs substantial over $1 million to get into the queue there. And by May of next year, we'd be at decision point 2, and we will know within 90% or so of how much power we can connect. But still will be another year almost before we get March of 2023, when we get interconnection permission, and that involves a number of different things. Then hopefully this will be constructed in 2023. Now, these are optimistic, depending on everybody getting their piece done when they need to, and these are large, complex projects. So if you don't see it until 2024, we weren't going to let anybody off the hook on doing their part, but something could fail and let us off the hook that when we told you that it was 2023. Okay. And then if anybody needs to contact me with questions, I'm Sean at MW for megawatt -PV for photovoltaic.com. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Sean. So we have a few minutes. If there is anybody who has any questions, I encourage you to raise your hand. Sean, you could probably stop sharing your screen and then that way we can just see you. I did think of one question about, so as solar expands, is that going to make power cheaper for residents? Or is Mid-America just going to charge me whatever they want anyway?
I can't speak for Mid-American. I think it becomes their mandate in order to preserve their monopoly is to get the best rates for their customers, to do the best job. But that's a very complicated thing, and probably one project in the mix won't change it. I think we're at the point where we're competitive with wind. I think wind prices have allowed power prices to be low in Iowa, but how one project, there gets to be 50 projects out there, prices keep coming down, I think it could affect it. Some of these old power plants that are still being run are quite expensive to run, and but I'm not an expert in that area. I'd like to think it has a benefit, but it won't be immediate. It probably won't see a bit of difference in your bill because they blend their whole service territory, which is statewide.
Got it. Ryan, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just, curious, is it solar against wind? Is it like a competitive thing as to kind of who will win Iowa's main production, or can both of those applications work together to maybe even provide enough energy for other outlying states around us?
No, there's certainly as a solar developer, I'd say solar wins, but the reality is we need a blended system. Wind blows when the sun doesn't shine. And it's really a unique point to see at what price point can you co-locate solar with wind. If the solar gets cheap enough, you can afford not to run it all the time and then just have a blended system, because when the sun's shining, the wind might not blow and nights can be breezier than days. But right now, I think it's going to remain a mix of both in the state, and more solar will come in. Really, if you drive across Northwest Iowa, I've ridden Ragbri a few of the last years when we've
I was looking
been up
for
north.
this short.
Go ahead.
And
no, you go ahead and finish. I just had to get somebody.
All right. So the reality is you're going to see a blend. A lot of the great solar sites are tied up, or wind sites are tied up. Frankly, the transmission lines in some area can't take any more capacity. So the idea of co-locating solar next to wind up in Northwest Iowa, where it's the land of giants out there when you bicycle across, might not be practical. Down here, we're actually here in Iowa City. We're south of the wind belt and headed down to southeast, and I really see that as being the solar belt. So I think there's room for both.
Great. Devin, you have a question?
Yeah. So as you've been going through, like, why isn't Mid-American or SIPCO doing their own project development? What makes it more possible for them to have you develop the project and then sell the energy to them?
Small companies like ours seem to be an important part of the solar industry, as they were with the wind industry 15, 20 years ago when it was getting going. At some point, wind really became dominated by, for instance, Mid-American having a whole team that does it. There's a lot of work. We go through a lot to get a project to the point. There's a fair amount of risk up front to get a project even to the point where we are, not to mention to the point where it's ready for construction, shovel ready, or what we term as having our notice to proceed to construction. And I think you have to probably, if you're looking at it from Mid-American's point of view or SIPCO's point of view, you need 8 projects being pursued out there for the one you're going to take. And we participated in a handful of requests for proposals from utilities, where there really are 8 projects that people are hanging on to out there. One gets chosen. So I think it really is, it's probably creates an efficiency having the small developer. I think in this particular case, we got ahead of the curve. We saw what was going to happen just because of being hometowners. And right now we're starting to hear from landowner partners that they're being called by, I think, by other developers. I think the Wapello project coming online woke the industry up. And I went through this in Michigan and Illinois, where we were kind of the only ones out there for a while, especially in Michigan. We were like, are you crazy? Solar here? And then once the first project got going, it was like the dinner bell rang and suddenly the state's being run over by developers.
You know, I did have a thought. You know, you said that specifically the state does not provide incentives for solar power, but I would assume they do provide that for wind. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure what they've got for wind. Certainly, it's been a very, very pro-wind state, which has been great, you know, through Democrat and Republican leadership. And I think Iowa's been fantastic. And we led the nation in biodiesel, ethanol, wind. I mean, some states a little ahead of us in wind, but not by much. There's no reason we shouldn't, and I've been saying this in the state for 5 years, there's no reason we shouldn't lead in solar or be a major player in solar. I think we'll get there. Little fact and little known fact, right now, 60% of our corn in Iowa is going to ethanol, right? That's a lot. We're producing energy. But you take 1 acre of corn and you make ethanol out of it, and you get yourself a car that runs on 100% ethanol. You fill that up, and that car goes 40 miles a gallon on that ethanol. You go 10,000 miles. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. But you put solar panels on that and buy yourself a nice shiny new Tesla. You put all that energy in a battery that you produce in 1 year on that acre, and you just fill up that Tesla and drive and drive and drive. You know how far you go? 1 million miles.
Wow.
2 orders of magnitude increase if we're just talking about fueling vehicles out of an acre.
Right.
The sun is, plants are very efficient at harvesting the sunlight, but they do it, you know, look how short the growing season is, very little bit of time, then you got to go through a lot of steps to get that energy back out of it. Versus here, you put those same rays of sun on the photovoltaic panel, boom, you've got electrons.
Right. So I think it is a good reminder to all of us that, you know, as we talk to our politicians, as the various political seasons come around, being pro natural energy, using the sun, using the wind, those are all good for us long term. And that I think we as Rotarians need to remember that, you know, following Rotary's newest area of focus, which is the environment, it would be good for us to, you know, make sure our politicians know that solar power, wind power, those are important things for us to think about as we want to kind of create a more holistic earth, let's say, down the road. So Sean, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it, as well as your partners who have joined us. In honor of your taking the time, our club will actually make a contribution to Rotary International's Polio Plus program in your name. And that donation will be matched 2-to-1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and will provide 70 vaccines for polio around the world.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for including us. And it's been a pleasure. We are doing our best to inform the community. If anyone else belongs to a group that would like a presentation, we want the community to feel like they're part of this and it's not something that's just happening out there in the field.
Great, wonderful. So again, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for attending today. It's been, you know, it's a nice sunny day. I want to remind you, Sunday is Mother's Day. So make sure that you're thinking about the mothers in your life. And Sean, also great to hear that you are actually the son of a Rotarian. So I think many of us remember Jack and remember him fondly. So, you know, it's always good to have people come back into the Rotary fold. You too could consider becoming a Rotary member. You know, your dad was a great example. You too could join us as well.
Well, thank you.
You bet. It gives you a great input to go speak to other Rotary clubs all over the world. See, multiple benefits, definitely.
Fantastic. We'll talk. Thanks.
Great. All right, well, thank you. And if there is no other business before the club, I will ask Devin if he can put up the slide for the four-way test. And I encourage you to all unmute and join me in this. Of the things that we think,
say, or do
is it the truth? Is it fair to all
concerned?
Will it build
Goodwill and better friendships,
Will it
and be beneficial to all concerned.
Great, thank you all for joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful sunny Thursday. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.